Keepin It Real with Russ on CBS 17 Plus.
Hey everybody, Russ Bowen here, keeping it real as in real estate. And it's really difficult sometimes to keep up with the day-to-day change, the week-by-week change, certainly the month-by-month change for all that's happening in real estate in Central North Carolina, and frankly across the country, because what happens across the country impacts us here locally as well. So we got a lot to talk about since we last talked to my friend over here. I got my buddy, Sean Smith with Society Real Estate back here with us for a third time, our third episode. Yeah. This is exciting.
It is. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. You doing okay?
Doing very well. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Have you adjusted to the time change?
Time change nor the cold. I'm not on board for either one.
You're not. You're not.
No, bring back the warm and the long days and summer.
It's the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, I overslept this morning about an hour, and
Did
for
you?
me, and I need 3 hours before I get to work with the dog and everything, and it was a mad rush.
Yeah.
But I'm calm. I'm cool now. I'm good to go.
Put it behind you.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, the last time you were here, we talked about interest rates. Mm-hmm. We talked about the prime interest rate going down 0.25% or 25 basis points. It's done it again since we last talked, but
Absolutely.
Sounds like it may not happen again based on what the feds are saying till January potentially.
Possibly. Yeah.
Especially with no real numbers coming out because of the shutdown. Where are we now since I last talked to you on mortgage rates?
Really still in the same position we were a month ago. Average I think this morning was 6.29. So still hovering in that low six range. Unfortunately the further economic uncertainty is keeping mortgage rates propped up. Unfortunately we're more tied to mortgage-backed security and 10-year treasury yields than we are to the Fed fund rate. And I think that's becoming, more and more, obvious as we continue to drop the Fed rate.
What's that doing on the psyche of the buyer?
I think the buyers are, there's a fatigue in the market, right? And, I think we've talked about that already, in some of the previous conversations, but I think that fatigue is continuing. And, their homes are expensive. The cost of lending is expensive. Insurance has gotten more expensive. All of the factors, utility costs are up. All of the factors associated with home ownership are more expensive today than they ever have been. And that's a reality we're dealing with.
Well, I want to talk a little bit. We talked about the time change. It's winter's coming. Winter is coming. Normally, historically, winter is a hard time to put something on the market. People aren't, jazzed to go drive around a neighborhood and look. I mean, it's just a hard time. You typically wait till spring-ish when the yard looks good, the azaleas are blooming, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
But there's a lot of stuff on the market, and people want to move it.
Yeah.
Owners want to move it.
Absolutely.
Sellers. But this feels really like it's getting into a serious buyer's market as opposed to a seller's market now.
It really is. And, I think we started talking about that tipping into a buyer's market 3 months ago when we first, started this.
Yeah.
And I think we were just kind of on the cusp of it. But, as we've furthered the builder incentives have gotten bigger in the buyer's favor, and we're seeing more and more sellers doing more either to prepare the home for the market, or doing more in the way of incentives and negotiations. I mean, that is an absolute fact.
What's your biggest advice you're giving to clients who are selling right now? If they want to move it,
Yep.
and they want to be competitive.
Yep.
Are you telling them the hard truth on some things?
You have to right now. And, the reality is that you really have to put more behind the home as far as preparation goes. That fresh coat of paint, maybe getting the floors refinished instead of just leaving that alone.
Giving you a little bit of an edge.
Those little things are going a lot further nowadays. The buyer is picky. The buyer that is out there and that's going to make that purchase, they're very picky right now. And so the more that consumers can do, or the sellers can do to prepare the homes and really, really put their best foot forward is it's making all the difference in the world. And then pricing it right. We're not in 2021, 2022 anymore. And, getting to that realization and pricing it right from the start is, makes all the difference in the world.
I want to talk about what President Trump has brought up, and there's still quite a buzz right now about this 50-year loan. So, when you peel back the layers of something like that, there are pros and there are cons, but I'm going to let you weigh in on what you think your pros and cons are.
I want to look at it positively, right? This affects my industry. This affects, my livelihood and then the people that work with me as well. and everybody in the industry. But, so I try to look at it positively, and I do think there is a small advantage to, opening an opportunity for some people who currently don't have the opportunity. And, if we could use it in small doses like that, in the very emergent situations that arise where it's really needed, I would be all in favor of it. What I fear will happen is we'll roll it out, and now there's a new level of perceived affordability that the market, because we live in a capitalist economy, the market will price homes to absorb that new affordability. And so I worry that the housing prices will go up in tandem with affordability achieved by the longer term of the financing options available if we go to a 50-year. But like I said, before, I do think there's some people that it would help, that currently are priced out of the market, that'll help to get back into the marketplace. And so I think if we could do something to help also curb, the kind of greed that goes along with it of people, oh, well, now somebody can, finance for 50 years, that's $250 more a month in monthly payment, and that's X number of dollars in house that I can get, or profit that I can get out of my house now. If we could curtail that a bit, I think it could be an effective tool. But I'm not sure that there's a way to actually do that.
If you're a person or family that's fairly transient with their job, you're only going to be there 3 to 5 years.
Perfect example.
This might be a good opportunity.
Absolutely.
If you're somebody who's going to land for a long time in the house, and let's say you live long enough to pay the 50-year loan or come close to it, I think the latest numbers I looked at on average is like an extra $300,000 in interest. And let's talk about equity, because you and I talked a lot about how people are affording $1 million plus homes in Central North Carolina. Part of that, as we've talked about, is you sell your first house, your second house, and you're building equity the whole time. You can buy more and more. This, though, will take much longer to build equity in your home.
It really will. There's no doubt about it, and a lot of the negativity that's out there on the internet right now about this is centered around the banks and their profitability, because it's very simple to run the amortization numbers on this and see how much the banks will benefit from those that actually sign up for a 50-year mortgage. The numbers are astounding.
When I first took my very first mortgage out, one of the things the bank says was, you're not going to live in this house for the rest of your life. Yeah. And they know that. All the banks know this. Most people know this. Your industry certainly knows this. The average time, according to an internet search I did this morning, for someone to live in a home before they sell it again is somewhere between 10 and 12 years, right? And that 10-year mark, correct me if I'm wrong, is about when you start seeing faster buildup of equity.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's typically when things really start to change on the amortization side, where you're making a lot more of your payments actually going to the principal of the home.
So what are you seeing in terms of if a family is considering moving out further to get more square footage, they're growing their family,
Absolutely.
Or they're downsizing and they want equity left over to sort of live on with smaller square footage? What's happening with that part of the market on the outskirts and further away down in Johnston County outside of the Triangle, or if you're going up into Person County or to Nash County, for instance?
It's funny. I was actually playing with a data point system that we have available to us as real estate agents. It's called InfoSparks. Any agents watching this would know exactly what it is. But I was kind of moving around the different counties and looking at the days on market. Wake County was at 33. But as I moved to some of these other smaller counties where you're talking about, there were some of them that were 9 days. 9 days on the market is their average days on market right now. And so I think you're hitting the nail on the head. A lot of these peripheral, outer communities are thriving right now.
Yeah.
They're doing incredibly, incredibly well. And, in some cases, I see their real estate markets actually doing better than even, right here in the core. But it's people moving out for affordability, for more space, for more acreage, for more home in a lot of cases.
When you talk to clients, when they're thinking about this, what are the parameters in terms of mileage? If I want to be within X many minutes or miles from the airport, from the hospital, all these things you think about, when you're getting older, or if you're younger and you have a little bit of a commute and you need to get to emergency service or a big grocery store, how far out are they willing to go?
A lot of those types of services have also, branched out into these smaller communities. So it's not as much of a conversation anymore. People do still want to have access to the larger city centers, but they're willing to go, 30, 45 minutes out. It's funny. I had a call this morning with somebody who's currently here in the core of Raleigh, but they want to move out to Alamance County, and I was kind of same thing, prompting what's the the factor behind it, and it's they feel that this area has just gotten busy, it's gotten very expensive, and it's not what they moved here for 15, 20 years ago, and so they're trying to reignite that and to find that again, and so they're looking to these outer communities that feel more like what the core felt like 15, 20 years ago.
What's happening right now with new construction? Is it on pace? Has it slowed down a bit? Is it like building faster than they can sell it? What's happening out there?
I think any builder you talk to right now would tell you that things have slowed down, and
which is good for a buyer. So let me just back that up,
great
because we talked about it being like a buyer's market,
Yep.
not a seller's market with previously owned homes. But this is true with stuff that's just sitting there unoccupied since the day the sticks went up.
Absolutely. Yeah. Any builder you talk to, they've slowed down. They're doing more and more in incentives. I had somebody just within the last week that got a rate buy down all the way to 1%. And it was a builder incentive program that they were doing, but you can go out and secure a 1% interest rate on a home today. Now that costs the builder, and a lot of money to be able to do that, because they actually artificially bought the rate down through the mortgage company. But those types of things are available, $15,000, $25,000 in additional incentives are being thrown out there. And, we haven't seen that in a really, really long time. I've been in this market for about 18 years, and, really, except for those first couple years I was here, we haven't seen these types of more buyer-based, benefits.
When your office gets cold calls and your other employees get cold calls from people who want to buy, what are the top things they're asking for right now?
That varies so much, right? But a big part of it is location. Location, right? Everybody has something that they're tied to, whether it's job, whether it's school, it's family. Location is still the driving factor. And like you said, as you're looking at moving outwards, right? It's what do I still need to be tied to? What do I still need to have access to? I think location is huge. I'm finding, just in hearing and talking to my agents and people that I'm speaking with, a lot of people want more space right now. They want more room.
Do they? Okay, I'm going to interrupt. Sorry, I do that a lot. It's all I can do to not do it sometimes. It's just my annoying personality. So, during pre-COVID, it was all about open floor plan. And then during COVID, people were driving each other nuts. And there was this whole, movement after that. I don't want to see my family if I don't want to see them. So I need a room I can close the door on that first floor. Yeah. I need my office space. I just need a room. Yeah. So is that kind of where we still are right now? People.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Offices are top of the line. On top of the list for
separate, even separate like living room space that we're not all, while I'm cooking, I'm not having to look at you, frankly, like you're in there watching TV.
No, the work from home, movement is still, it's still real, and it's absolutely a conversation with almost every single buyer that we're working with. And if you look at new construction plans, a lot of the plans carry what's called like a flex space or a pocket office or a dedicated office. The builders have adjusted and are, all of the new construction stuff contains some of those spaces no matter what.
You know what I don't see a lot of, and I do look a lot, I don't see a lot of options out there for, I don't know if they still call them this or not, but, patio homes. One floor, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, but everything on one floor with a big open outdoor space in the back that's, screened in or whatever. How come we don't see a lot of that? Because it's money.
They're expensive to build.
They are?
They are.
Even though they're one floor?
Your efficiency of building increases as you go up. Right? Because when you're building on a footprint, right, the foundation costs, the utility costs, all of those things now are into one floor versus 2. And, so it's considerably more expensive to build. I agree with you. There's a huge demand for it. And I know even just within my office right now, I know we have a few buyers that we're hunting for single level living, zero entry type type situations, not a lot of steps and those types of things. And there's just not a lot of them available. We do have a good amount of 55 plus neighborhoods in the greater Raleigh area, but then there's also a lot of people who either don't qualify for that, because they're not of the age, or they just don't want to be in that type of lifestyle.
Well, it's so funny you said that.
And so it's difficult to find them
Yeah.
outside. It's difficult to find that exact type of product outside of those dedicated communities.
Well, a lot of older folks, or people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, they want to be around some younger people because, it's invigorating in some ways. Yeah. And, it keeps you occupied and fun things to talk about and and folks to look after you maybe.
For sure. Keeps you young.
I wonder if it ever works against a builder if you call it 55 plus or senior.
I think it certainly could. Yeah.
I mean, no, I'm not trying to disparage, the marketing or people who love that at all.
I came from the builder industry, which I think we've talked about a little bit, and there was a time when we first started doing 55 plus neighborhoods that we transitioned back away from it and started calling it age targeted, instead of being 55 plus. And what we did is we designed it the same exact way. All the marketing was targeted towards that age demographic, but we weren't making it restrictive, right? You didn't have to qualify by age to then get into the community. And so that is something that, that I remember, came up as an...
Sean, I had to put an edit in because...
No worries.
We're gonna have to put an edit in because I just clicked a button. This is what happens when I do things technical. Please tell me someone can fix this. Okay, so back to finish your thought.
I forget where we were at.
You were talking about. See, it's not just me. We were talking about before I had to do a double edit.
I love it.
You're talking about when being a builder and changing the marketing concept of how to attract people.
Yeah, and so we were building 55 plus neighborhoods, and and found that we were missing part of the demographic that wanted to be in those neighborhoods, and so we shifted to still designing the homes the same way, the communities the same way, but and our marketing the same, but remove the restriction. And it worked really, really well. And so, I saw in the past, and I think I see some people doing it today, pivoting to make some of those changes, to make it more accommodating for everybody.
Last time we were together, after we finished, I said I want to talk to you about crime scene homes.
Yes.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
All right. We're going to take a real break now. Nice. Intentional break.
Intended.
We'll be right back.
Keepin' It Real with Russ on CBS 17 Plus.
Sean Smith back with us with Society Real Estate. We were talking about homes where severe crimes, serious crimes have happened. Have you ever had to list a house?
I have.
That something bad has happened in?
I have, yeah.
So walk me through that. Are you normally aware beforehand because it was in the news? Did the seller tell you, or you saw the police tape?
All of the above, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen a couple of different scenarios where I've been involved, but where things have happened, and there's some times where we have to disclose some things, and times when we don't. But it definitely draws additional attention, when you're listing a property like that, especially because oftentimes, especially the neighbors, know the story. So it makes for really interesting open houses and conversations around the listing, and unfortunately as a broker, we're really not supposed to get involved too much in the people part of all of this.
Sure.
Right? We're supposed to very much be about the real property, the real estate, and all of that.
And you want to be sensitive.
You do.
You don't want to be flippant about something that tragically happened.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you got to be ready to answer some questions.
It could be a really sensitive one, and one that you have to kind of tiptoe around, especially as if there was media behind it, before the listing ever hit the market. But it can also, I did one of these I was involved in one back in Florida that had gotten a lot of media attention, and the property got so much attention when we put it on the market. It was a flood of people wanting to see it, and people really thought they were going to be able to see something inside the home, even though it had been very, there was a remediation company that came in and cleaned it up, and the home looked brand new when we put it on the market, but the expectation from the general public was of interest. They wanted to see what it was.
Which is unfortunate, but definitely
is.
not surprising because we all have that curiosity, you know, and
Yeah.
people want to know more than they should know.
Yeah.
Do you ever get people who feel creepy once they get in there? You know, like shivers up my spine?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I'm wondering if I can even talk about this. I guess I can.
Be careful.
Probably one of the creepiest showing things, and I never get to talk about this stuff. This is actually really fun. So one of the creepiest showing situations that I've ever known of, and it wasn't even involving myself. It was one of our agents that worked for us, but he sent the picture out to everybody in my company when it happened. But he was showing a property at night. The property did not have full lights. The lights that would come on inside the home were like an emergency lighting situation. And as they get into the back of the home, so they're walking around with just cell phone lights, they open a closet and there are a pair of shackles.
What?
Mounted through the floor.
What?
A pair of shackles in a closet. And the agent who was doing the showing calls me, puts me on FaceTime, shows me, and then could not get out of the property fast enough.
Wow.
Immediately we contacted the listing agent. The listing agent actually had no idea.
They didn't do a walkthrough?
Didn't do a thorough enough walkthrough to see to see the shackles. But I'll have to dig up the picture. I'll actually send it to you. It's but even just seeing the picture, is unsettling, right?
Sure.
But those types of things absolutely do happen.
Now, a lot of these houses, if it's a really horrific crime, get torn down, right?
They do, yes. Yeah, and I've actually worked in those situations as well, where, in some of those situations, we're able to work with the local fire department or even the local, like police stations. We were talking about the SWAT guys are just down the road from where we're located here, but they will use a property like that for training purposes. And it's really, really fun to get to witness them doing it, and, especially like SWAT training and stuff, and then the controlled burns.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting process.
It's an important part of, keeping us safe in the future.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the legality of everything and what you can and can't say to clients or voluntarily say. So let's say you've got a house that really wasn't out there in the news, but there was a bad crime that occurred there. The neighbors know all about it. They're going to tell someone if they move in there probably. Yeah. Are you obliged by law to tell anything? How does this work?
It depends on what it is. And honestly, I'm going to be honest, if I come across a situation, I'm going to go and do my research and make some calls and make sure that I'm disclosing what needs to be disclosed properly. But there are absolutely situations where disclosure becomes, of utmost importance, and and there's rights as a consumer to know certain things as well.
There's a risk too if you're not forthright, because you can get a day from a closing and they pull out once they do their own research, perhaps.
Yeah, and I mean, the lack of disclosure could be as damaging as as the full disclosure could, or actually even more so. But yeah, if I come across these types of situations, typically I'm going directly to my broker in charge, and then we're probably going to go ahead and contact the real estate commission and just make sure that we're handling it the right way. Yeah, just no questions asked.
Do you ever get questions that you don't feel comfortable asking when it comes to these houses? Like, I'd rather not get into that part of it.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, as a broker, you really have to kind of get into the nitty gritty of things, and so there's definitely times that you have uncomfortable conversations, for sure.
Do you ever just not take a house or take a listing because of something like this?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and there's times too with, maybe the property has some things going on and the sellers aren't willing to address them or things like that. There's always discretion on the broker's part to maybe not take a listing that isn't going to turn out to be the best situation for the broker.
And it can be sad. I mean, you'll see a house sit there for years and years and years, and it just starts to become dilapidated and the roof caving in, and particularly if it's not in a neighborhood where an HOA or so there may be some control as to, or you can report it to say, to the city, and it be condemned. And then there are certain laws that kick into effect with what you have to do after that point. Right. Out in the country, I've certainly seen it. Oh yeah, a lot. And it is sad. Yeah. But I think there's definitely a niche market out there for this kind of thing.
For people turning those over? Yeah, there are. Yeah. And there's certainly people that's their business, right? Is they go after specific properties like this.
The other part of that too, I think, is I kind of put this in perspective with historic homes,
Right.
That are built in the 1800s, early 1900s. Chances are someone passed away,
Oh yeah.
especially before, people went to the hospital
Yep.
as much as they do now. But certainly even today, I mean, there's a good chance that at some point with a historic home in a historic neighborhood or somewhere out in the country, that happened and something else might have happened and we'd have no clue.
Right. Right. Yeah, and I mean, really, unless it was something recent, nobody's going back.
Yeah.
Nobody's going back and researching if back in 1930 there was a mass murder in this property or something crazy happened. Like, nobody's doing that level of research and going back and trying to to disclose all of that.
I mean, so when you look at this sort of time continuum, it's a moment in time that happened in this square footage that is a blip,
Yeah.
and
that's
people
really
kind of
all it is.
okay.
Yeah, that's really all it is.
But there's also a difference, I think. I'm thinking like, someone who's listening with a fairly new home as opposed to something with all the historic bones in it.
Right.
That you kind of like expect,
Yeah, yeah.
you know?
Something that's 100 years old, you kind of walk through and the floors creak and
Yeah.
it tells its own story, right?
Yeah, or your mom's living there and she's like, "Oh, I saw this guy that they told me I'd see before I bought it. He came by, say hello." She said, "Good to meet you. Please don't come back."
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
I love it.
Oh gosh. Who thought this would get to this from 50-year mortgages to this? It's good. It's important stuff. People love to know this stuff.
Absolutely.
Sean, what do you expect we're going to talk about next time? What are you looking for in the next 30 days?
Well, hopefully the government will be back open.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed today they get all that back together.
Closings are still slow though because of that.
Yeah, I think we're still seeing some delays. I'm optimistic that they'll get that wrapped up today, and the next couple weeks we'll funnel through the closings that have been delayed, and all that'll get behind us. But I think as we look into the new year, I think there's some optimism that's going to come out of things. There's obviously some action from the Fed. There's the 50-year mortgage thing, whether good, bad, and different, right? I think there's going to be it'll make things happen, and so I think there'll be a lot to talk about over the next couple months.
Looking forward to it. Good to see you. Try to get used to the time change.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Jeez. If you could take the cold away, I'd be good.
I always get excited about December 21, 22 because then I know we're adding a minute a day of daylight.
We're going back the other
and
way.
that always gives me great hope in this world. Sean, thanks. Good to see you, bud.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And thank you guys for listening again. We'll be back later with another edition, our fourth edition after this third edition of Keeping It Real, as in Keeping It Real in Real Estate. We appreciate you guys watching.
Keeping It Real with Russ on CBS 17 Plus.